What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, I am going to be recapping the Super Bowl 58 Kansas City Chiefs versus San Francisco 49ers game that occurred last night. The Kansas City Chiefs obviously took a 25-22 win in overtime, as it was only the second Super Bowl to go into overtime in the history of the game. And it was a fantastic Super Bowl, to say the least, and an amazing NFL season. And I just wanted to go over this game quickly, um, to just kind of summarize the season and summarize the Super Bowl. So let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into it. To begin, both these teams had very good seasons. And, the game started off pretty quiet, of course, 0-0 in the first quarter. And you can look at that score, that box score, and see the 0-0 and think it was a very unentertaining game. But, it was a defensive minded game. Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs, was really just locked in all game long, rallying his troops and stopping Brock Purdy in that electric San Francisco 49ers offense. But so was the San Francisco 49ers defense. They were really in a zone all game. They limited Patrick Mahomes, and we didn't really see a lot of explosive Patrick Mahomes plays until later on in the game, when he was able to use his legs to his advantage. But the game started off pretty nice. McCaffrey had that fumble on the first drive, which really killed them. But then the Niners, they rallied and they scored. They started off the game hot. They were up 10-3 at halftime. The Jawan Jennings trick play pass to Christian McCaffrey was an outstanding play call and a super exciting thing to watch. But it worked out in the end, and it got them ahead. But I think if you go in 10-3 at halftime, though I like how the 49ers have played, the Kansas City Chiefs were in that game every single bit of it. The Kansas City Chiefs may have been down 7, but they weren't nearly out of the game at all. They rallied their troops and they got it done in the end. They had a dominant third quarter, and they were really able to put Brock Purdy out of his zone, and Patrick Mahomes got in his zone. So the game, it stopped at 19-19 going into overtime. And that's when, I was able to notice the 49ers, the offense, they really clicked as a unit in overtime. But then in the biggest situation of the game, a guy like Brock Purdy, I like him a lot. He just couldn't get the job done. And I think that was the issue for the 49ers all playoffs, was Brock Purdy getting the job done in the big situations. That's the reason they fell so far behind in the Lions game, the reason that it took them so long to get back in it in the Packers game. So I think for that reason, against such a good Kansas City defense, they weren't able to produce much of an offensive attack. And I think in that performance in the overtime, he missed a couple throws. The offensive line kind of gave out, and they weren't able to convert, as they only settled for a field goal. Then the Kansas City Chiefs got the ball back, down by 3 in overtime. They changed that rule for overtime, and the rest was history. They marched all the way down the field. Mahomes used his legs frequently, converted on third down, and then the play action rollout pass to Mecole Hardman to seal the game, and the rest was history. But overall, it was a very exciting Super Bowl. And I think the rematch from 4 years ago, it was a good performance by both teams. But again, a similar outcome. The Chiefs came back from behind and they won the game because they had the better quarterback, I truly believe. Both defenses very good. It was a very even game, 455 to 382 yards. But you can clearly see the Chiefs dominated on offense. They had more passing yards, they had more rushing yards. Their defense was able to get to Brock Purdy more than they got to Patrick Mahomes. And when they did get to Patrick Mahomes, his sheer clutch ability was able to get him out. Patrick Mahomes was the Super Bowl MVP, well deserving. throwing 46 attempts in a Super Bowl like that's big, and especially when you have, Isaiah Pacheco didn't really show up. Travis Kelce was great in the second half, but he wasn't there in the first half. Rashee Rice didn't do too much that game, and he just didn't overall have the help that I think he needed to kind of take control of that game. But in the end, he got the job done. As for the 49ers, they had a great season. I think Brock Purdy is a bright future. But in the end, I think though he had a great season, he was an MVP candidate, he was a difference maker. Mahomes is a difference maker. Mahomes was the reason they won that game because Mahomes is substantially a better quarterback and a playmaker than Brock Purdy. But in the end, Christian McCaffrey, he played his heart out. We saw a little Kyle Juszczyk action but McCaffrey, 80 yards receiving. Juwan Jennings had a fantastic game. And it was just an excellent Super Bowl, to say the least. And it was a great season as we see the Kansas City Chiefs come out on top. But let me know what you guys think of the game in the comments down below. And hopefully we can get some off-season content out in the near future. And it was a great season, to say the least. And it was topped off by a Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.